The alien village stood in silence under the pale red sky. The houses were built from stone and clay, strong but cold, and in the center of the village was a wide open ground where people often gathered. On that ground a woman stood alone, taller than the rest. Her shoulders were broad, her frame was heavy, and her steps made the dust rise. She was not weak, she was not sick, but still she carried a curse in the eyes of her people. They called her too large to bear children. They whispered it when she walked past. They said her body was a mistake, a burden to the tribe. Mothers pulled their young ones close when she came near. Fathers looked away in shame as if her presence alone could bring bad luck. She had once tried to join the other women when they gathered to sing, but their voices had turned sharp. "Go, giant one, you will never bring life into this world, you are empty." Since then she had stayed alone. Her name was Sira, but no one spoke it with kindness anymore. Even her own family had turned against her. Her mother avoided her eyes, her father refused to speak. Her sisters walked proudly with children in their arms, while Sira was left with silence. At night, she would lie on the edge of the village, staring at the sky. She wondered why the stars shone for everyone else but not for her. One day, as the village gathered for the harvest feast, Sira tried to walk near the fire pit. The smell of roasted grains and sweet fruit filled the air. She thought maybe this time they would let her sit, but as she stepped forward, the crowd pulled back. A man shouted, "Do not let her touch the food, her cursed hands will spoil it." Laughter followed, cruel and sharp. Her chest tightened, but she kept walking. One child, bold and unafraid, ran close and asked, "Why are you so big? Why don't you have babies like my mother?" The words cut deeper than a blade. Sira wanted to cry, but tears were seen as weakness. So she turned away. She left the feast in silence, her stomach empty, her heart heavier than stone. She walked through the dust fields alone, past the fences, past the dry crops. Beyond the edge of the village there was only barren land, cracked earth, and lonely wind. She fell to her knees, pressing her hands against the ground. Her voice broke as she whispered, "If I am useless, then why was I made at all?" The wind gave no answer. The stars above remained cold. Hours passed and her body grew weak. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her feet carried her farther from the village, toward the edge of human farms that lay hidden in the valleys. Her people despised humans. They said humans were weak, foolish, and greedy. But Sira had no strength left to care about what her people said. Her legs shook, her vision blurred, and finally, she collapsed onto the dirt path. Her face pressed against the earth, her breath shallow. From the distance, a figure watched, a man, human in shape, stood with a basket of crops in his arms. He wore simple clothes, his hands rough with work. He was a farmer, unknown to her, unknown to her people. He had seen the tall alien woman before, wandering like a ghost near the fields. But now she lay still, half buried in dust. The man hesitated. He knew her people hated his kind. If he touched her, if he helped her, maybe it would bring trouble. Yet something inside him stirred. He saw not a cursed giant, not an outcast, but a woman broken by cruelty. A human heart could not turn away from that sight. He placed down his basket, walked forward, and knelt beside her. Sira's eyes fluttered open. Her vision blurred, but she saw his face, different from her kind, smaller, human. She wanted to speak, but her throat was dry. The man reached into his bag and pulled out a flask of water. Without a word, he lifted her head gently and pressed the flask to her lips. The water was cool, and as it touched her tongue, a tear slipped down her cheek. She wanted to ask why. Why would a human, an outsider, give her kindness when her own people gave her none? But she was too weak to speak. Her head fell against his chest. The man looked around, knowing the danger. "If anyone saw still," he whispered softly, "you are not worthless, not to me." That night, under the pale red sky, the outcast of the village was carried in human arms toward a small farm hidden from cruel eyes. She did not know what awaited her, but for the first time in years, her heart felt a spark of warmth. The human farmer's name was Elias. He was not a warrior, not a leader, only a man who worked the land with his own hands. His farm was small but alive with grain, vegetables, and a few fruit trees. On most days he lived in silence, his only company the birds that circled above and the quiet wind that carried the mayo smell of earth. He was a man of patience, and though his life was simple, he carried a heavy heart, for humans were not welcome near the alien villages. When Elias carried Sira into his farm, he laid her gently on a wooden bed inside his small home. The roof was low, the walls made of stone and wood. The place was warm, filled with the smell of bread and herbs. She looked out of place. Her tall frame barely fitting, yet her weakness made her seem fragile. He watched her breathe, shallow but steady. He gave her more water and placed a blanket over her. When morning came, Sira woke to the sound of a fire crackling. Her eyes blinked against the light of a lantern. For a moment she thought she was dead and dreaming, for no alien home looked like this. Then she saw him, the human, sitting by the fire, stirring a pot of food. The smell reached her, and her stomach tightened with hunger. Elias turned his head and met her eyes. He did not smile, but his voice was calm. "You are safe. Here, eat." He filled a wooden bowl and brought it to her. The food was simple, broth with roots and grains, but to her it was like a feast. She hesitated, her pride fighting against her need, but the hunger was stronger. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "Why?" she whispered, her voice low. "Why do you help me? Your kind is hated, my kind hates you." Elias did not answer at once. He poured himself water, drank, and looked into the fire. "Because I know what it is like to be unwanted," he said softly. His words carried weight, as if he too bore scars not seen. Sira looked at him, confused. Her people told stories of humans as greedy traders and weak settlers. Yet this one showed no greed, no weakness, only quiet strength. His hands were rough with work, his arms marked. With old cuts, his eyes, though tired, held no cruelty. In the days that followed, she stayed in his home. Elias did not force her to speak. He gave her food, water, and a corner of his house to rest. Sometimes he worked in the fields while she watched from the doorway. He cut wood, mended fences, and guided animals. He treated her presence as if it were natural, not strange. One evening, as the red sun sank low, she walked outside. Her strength had returned little by little. The fields stretched wide, glowing in the last light. She felt small, even though her body was larger than most. Elias came to her side and asked, "Do you wish to return to your people?" Her heart clenched. She remembered their laughter, their cruel words, the feast where they had cast her out. She shook her head. "No, I cannot. To them I am nothing." Elias looked at her carefully. "To me, you are not nothing." His voice was steady, not soft but certain. Those words pierced deeper than she expected. For years she had carried only shame, and now this human, this outsider, spoke as if she had value, but fear lived inside her still. "If they know I am here, they will punish you," she whispered. Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, they might. But I will not send you away, not when you have nowhere else to go." That night Sira lay awake, hearing the quiet sounds of the farm, the rustle of leaves, the creak of wood, the breath of the man who had given her kindness. She thought of the cruelty of her people and the warmth of this stranger. Her heart battled between fear and hope. Days turned into weeks. Sira grew stronger. Her cheeks no longer hollow, her steps no longer weak. She even began to help Elias with simple tasks. She carried buckets of water with ease, her strength greater than his. She harvested crops faster than he could. At first Elias watched in silence. Then he laughed for the first time, a sound rough but real. "You will make me lazy," he joked. She almost smiled. The first smile in years, but shadows lingered. She knew her people would not stay blind forever. Someone would see her, someone would whisper, and then danger would come. Still, each day in the farmer's company gave her something she had never known: dignity. And so the outcast of the village, once left to die in the dust, found shelter in the house of a human farmer. She did not know where this path would lead, but already a seed of change had been planted, not just in her body, but in her heart. And perhaps she thought in his heart too. The days on the farm passed slowly, yet each one carried a weight in Sierra's heart. She had food now, she had shelter, she even had the rare kindness of a human, but the old voices of her people still haunted her mind. Every night, when she closed her eyes, she heard their laughter, their cruel words. Too large, too useless, no life will ever grow in you. The words had cut so deep that even here, safe among fields, the wound remained open. Elias worked each day with steady hands. He repaired fences, tilled soil, and cared for his animals. Sierra began to join him. At first she only carried buckets or chopped wood, but soon she was working beside him. Her strength amazed him. She could lift what took him 2 trips. She could walk long hours without tiring. Yet even with this strength, her spirit trembled. One evening, after a long day, Elias noticed her, standing near the well, staring into the water. Her reflection looked broken, like the ripples of her past would never settle. He walked over and said softly, "What do you see there?" She turned her head slowly. "I see what they told me I am. A giant shell with nothing inside, an empty woman." Her voice cracked as she said it. Elias felt his chest tighten. He placed his hand on the edge of the well and answered firmly, "You are not empty. Do not let their lies live inside you." Sierra lowered her eyes. "It is easy for you to say you are human. You do not know what it means to be cursed by your own blood, to be rejected by your own people." Her shoulders shook, and for the first time in front of him, tears fell. Freely, Elias did not look away. He let her speak, let her break. When she finished, he said quietly, "You are right. I do not know your pain, but I know mine. My people call me a fool for farming this land. They say I waste my life living so, close to those who hate us. They say I will never be remembered, never be honored. Perhaps I too am an outcast, just in another way." His words surprised her. She had thought humans only lived with pride, but now she saw another kind of exile. Different, yet the same. For the first time, she felt she was not entirely alone in her suffering. The following days brought silence between them, not of anger but of thought. Sierra carried her duties quietly. Elias let her. But sometimes she caught him watching her. Not with judgment, but with something else, something steady. As if he was waiting for her to see herself the way he saw her. One night a storm broke over the valley. Rain poured hard on the roof. Thunder rolled like drums. Sierra sat awake, listening to the sound. She turned to Elias, who was mending tools. Near the fire, her voice was soft. "Do you think I will ever be more than what they call me?" Elias looked at her across the firelight. The flames made her features glow, strong yet fragile. "Yes," he said simply. "But only if you believe it yourself. You are more than their words, more than their rejection." The silence stretched. Only thunder filled the space. Sierra felt her heart stir. She wanted to believe him, but her fear was heavy. "And if they find me here?" she whispered. "If they come for me, they will hurt you too." Elias leaned back, his gaze calm. "Let them come. I will not give you back to cruelty. Not while I have strength." His words carried no boast, only truth. Her breath caught. She had never heard anyone speak for her like that. Not her family, not her people. Only this human farmer whose hands smelled of soil and whose eyes spoke of quiet strength. For the first time she felt the chains of shame loosen, even if only a little. As weeks passed, the bond between them grew. They spoke more in the evenings. Sierra shared fragments of her past, how her sisters laughed when they bore children, how her mother turned her face away. Elias listened without judgment. He spoke of his own losses, the family he had left behind, the loneliness of farming alone. Their words became a thread, slowly weaving trust, yet the struggle inside Sierra did not vanish when she looked at the fields. She saw life growing everywhere, crops rising from the soil, seeds turning into food. She wondered why she, with a body meant for strength, was denied the one gift her people valued most. The ache in her heart never left. One evening, she stood, among the grain, her hand pressed to her stomach, her eyes closed, her voice whispered to the night. If there is even a chance, just a small chance, let me prove them wrong. She did not know Elias was standing nearby, listening. He said nothing, but in his heart a quiet decision formed. He would not let her carry this burden alone. He would search, he would find answers. He would help her fight the curse of her people, and so the silent struggle continued, not only in her heart but in his as well. For while she fought her shame, he began to fight for her hope. Together, though neither had said it aloud, they had begun a journey neither could yet understand. The morning sun rose over the valley, casting golden light across the farm. Elias was already awake, tending to the crops, while Sira stood by the doorway, watching him with silent thoughts. She had grown stronger in body since the day he carried her here, but inside her heart the old wound of rejection still bled. She often asked herself if she truly belonged anywhere. Elias noticed her quiet stare and finally spoke. "The soil is patient," he said. "It gives life if we care for it, even when it looks dry and hopeless." He brushed dirt from his hands and added, "Perhaps you are like the soil, waiting for the right care to bring forth what is hidden." Sira's eyes lowered, her voice sharp with pain. "My people say nothing is hidden in me, only emptiness. I am too large, too broken. No life will ever grow here." She pressed her hand against her stomach, the gesture filled with sorrow. Elias walked closer, his voice firm. "Your people are wrong. They call what they do not understand a curse, but I see something different. I see strength. I see a body that carries more than they can imagine. Do not accept their chains." His words planted something inside her, a seed of doubt against all the lies she had believed. Still, doubt was heavy. She shook her head. "You cannot know. You are human, not one of us. You cannot change what I am." But Elias did not let go. That night, while Sira slept, he searched through old human texts, books left behind by settlers, and worn tablets he had traded for in distant markets. He read about alien biology, about medicines and ways to heal. His rough farmer's hands turned pages late into the night, his eyes heavy but his heart determined. The following days he began to share with her what he learned. "Look," he said one evening, showing her drawings from a book. "Not all. Bodies follow the same path. Some are slow to grow life, some need help. It does not mean they are empty. It means they are different." Sira studied the pages with careful eyes. She traced the lines of strange symbols. "Different," she whispered, "but my people do not honor different. They destroy it." Her voice trembled, and Elias placed his hand gently on the table. "Then we will honor it here. In this place with me you are not broken." Slowly she began to help him search. Together they pored over ancient scrolls and tablets. She told him of her people's old songs, forgotten stories of women once called giants, who were feared, but also revered. It was said some had carried children of mixed blood long ago, half human, half alien. Legends dismissed as lies, but now they felt like sparks of truth. As nights turned colder, hope began to grow, fragile but alive. Sira found herself standing under the stars, her voice whispering, "What if?" For years she had begged the sky for answers and received only silence. But now, with Elias beside her, she felt the silence shifting. One evening, as the fire burned low, she confessed her deepest fear. "What if I try, and I fail? What if I prove them right?" Her words fell heavy in the air. Elias leaned forward, his eyes steady. "Then we will try again, and again, until we find the truth. Failure does not make you worthless. Giving up does." Sira stared at him, struck by the strength in his simple words. In her village, weakness was mocked. Failure was a stain, but here, failure was only another step, another chance. The thought gave her a breath of courage she had never known. Days passed, and a bond deeper than words formed. They worked side by side, not only in the fields, but in the quiet study of forgotten knowledge. Elias showed her small human tools to measure life within. She placed them against her skin, her heart racing, though nothing yet stirred. Still, she held on to the possibility, and then came a night when the wind was still, and the sky burned with stars. Sira stood alone in the field, pressing her hand to her heart. She whispered to the heavens, "If there is hope, let me carry it, let me prove them wrong, let me be more than their shame." She felt a warmth inside, faint, fleeting, but enough to make her believe. When Elias came to her side, he saw her eyes shining. "What is it?" he asked. She looked at him, and for the first time she spoke with fire. "Perhaps I am not empty. Perhaps I am waiting." And in that moment something invisible shifted. It was not proof, not yet, but it was the beginning of faith. A fragile seed planted in her heart, watered by the kindness of a human. The gift of hope had been given, and it burned brighter than all the cruel words of her past. The seasons began to turn. The air grew cooler. The leaves on the trees near the farm shifted to dull gold. Each day Sira worked beside Elias, and though her heart still carried old wounds, there was now a fire in her spirit that had not been there before. She no longer walked with her head bent low. Instead, she lifted her gaze to the horizon, daring to imagine what her people had told her was impossible. But doubt was never far. At night she sometimes woke with fear pressing down on her chest. She whispered to herself, "What if nothing changes? What if I am still empty?" She would sit by the small window, staring at the stars. Yet even then, Elias's voice would echo in her memory, steady and sure, reminding her that she was more than the cruelty she had endured. One early morning, as the pale sun rose, Sira stood in the fields, breathing in the sharp air. Her hand rested on her stomach without thinking. She froze, her heart skipping. For the first time in her life she felt a stirring, light, faint, like the brush of wings deep inside her. She gasped, her hands trembling. Her first thought was fear. Was it sickness? Was it some curse from her people? Her legs weakened beneath her weight, and she sank to the earth, pressing both hands against her belly. Her breath came fast and her mind raced. Elias found her there, kneeling in the dirt, his face filled with concern. "Sira, what is it? Are you hurt?" He rushed to her side. She looked up at him, eyes wide with a mix of terror and wonder. "Something moved," she whispered. "Inside me, I felt it, Elias. I felt it." For a long heartbeat, neither spoke. Elias's rough hands hovered, unsure if he should touch. Then he steadied himself and placed his palm gently over hers. His voice was calm, though his heart pounded. "We will know for certain." He led her inside, where his small collection of human tools waited. He lit a lantern and took out a device. It was old, traded long ago from travelers, a machine to listen and measure. With careful hands he placed it against her skin. At first there was silence, only her heavy breath. But then, a faint rhythm, slow, steady, alive. Sira's eyes widened, tears slipping down her cheeks. Elias's throat tightened. He whispered, "It is life. You are carrying life." Her hands flew to her mouth. She shook her head as if she could not believe. "No, they said it was impossible. They said I was cursed. How can this be?" Her voice broke into sobs. Elias pulled the device away and met her gaze. "It is not a curse. It never was. It is a lie they forced on you, and now you know the truth." She wept into her hands, not from sorrow, but from relief so heavy it crushed her chest. Years of shame and rejection melted into tears. For the first time she felt the chains of her people break, not by words, but by the living proof inside her. The following days were filled with a strange new light. Sira walked slower, more careful, her hands often brushing her belly as if guarding the fragile spark. Her heart was still afraid, but fear no longer ruled her. Every time she felt the small stirring, she whispered, "I am not empty, I am not cursed." Elias watched her with quiet pride. He made changes to the farm, preparing softer food, carrying heavier loads so she would not strain. He worked late into the night, mending and building, his hands raw and blistered, yet he never complained. But the world outside their farm was not blind. A traveler passed near the valley and saw her, taller than humans, walking among the crops, Rumors reached the village quickly. Whispers spread like fire. The giant lives she hides with a human. Some called it shame. Others called it blasphemy. Leaders of the village grew restless, for if the whispers were true, their cruel judgment would be questioned. One evening, Sira stood by the door, her face tense. "They will come," she said quietly. "They will not let me live in peace. If they know I carry a child, they will call it unclean." Fear returned, sharp and heavy. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we will face them, together." Sira's eyes filled with both fear and gratitude. She whispered, "You do not know what they are capable of." Elias's jaw tightened. "And they do not know what I am capable of. I will not abandon you, not now, not ever." That night Sira lay awake, her hand resting on her stomach. She felt another small flutter, stronger this time, and her tears fell again. But they were tears of joy. The first sign of life had come, and with it, hope too powerful to be silenced. The woman once cast out as too large, too empty, now carried proof that her people's lies had no power over her, and in the quiet safety of a human's home, the impossible had become real. The news spread faster than the wind across the valley. Sira was alive. Sira was not wandering in shame as they believed. She was with a human, and worse in their eyes, there were whispers that she carried a child. The village that had once cast her out now burned with restless talk. Some called it a disgrace, some called it unnatural, but a few, deep inside, began to wonder if the old songs of giants bearing life were not just forgotten legends. Elias knew it could not stay hidden forever. One evening he found Sira standing at the edge of the field, staring toward the hills where her people lived. Her tall frame looked carved from stone in the fading sun. Her voice was low but steady. "I cannot hide forever. They will come. If they take me by force, they will take the child too." Elias stepped closer, his hands rough with dirt, yet filled with resolve. "Then we go to them, not as beggars, but with truth. You carry life. You carry proof that they were wrong. They need to see it with their own eyes." Her heart raced with fear, but also with courage she had not felt before. She remembered the cruel laughter, the endless whispers. Yet she also remembered the small stirring inside her that reminded her she was no longer broken. She nodded. "Then we will go." The journey back to her village was heavy with silence. The path wound through dry land, past cracked stones and thorny bushes. Elias walked beside her, carrying little but his strength. Sira's steps were slow, one hand always pressed against her stomach. As they climbed the last ridge, the village appeared before them, smoke rising from the cooking fires. Children's voices carried faint on the wind. When the first villagers saw her, their face turned pale. They shouted, and soon the square filled. People gathered, whispering, pointing. Some stepped back as if she carried disease. Others glared at Elias with open hatred. "Why has she returned?" one woman spat. "She was cast out, she is cursed." Another shouted, "And she walks with a human, a shame upon us all." The elder of the village, a man with silver lines across his brow, stepped forward. His eyes were sharp. "Sira, why do you return after we freed ourselves of your curse? Have you come to bring more shame?" His gaze shifted to Elias. "And why do you bring this human filth into our home?" The crowd roared with agreement, but Sira stood tall, taller than any of them. For the first time she did not bow her head. Her voice rang clear. "I was called empty, I was called broken, but you were wrong. I carry life within me, the life you said I would never know." A stunned silence fell over the square. Whispers raced, eyes wide with shock. Some muttered lies, while others looked uneasy. Elias stepped forward then, his voice calm but firm. "She carries a child, I have seen it. I have heard the beating of its heart. You cast her out for nothing. You called her worthless, yet she carries the future." The elder's face darkened. "No, this cannot be. No child born of her can be pure. If it is true, then it is tainted. A mix of human and alien blood, such a thing cannot be allowed." His voice thundered, and many shouted with him, "Not allowed, not allowed." Sira's body trembled, but she did not step back. her hand pressed against her stomach, her eyes burning with fire. "You will not take this child from me. You will not call it shame. This child is mine. It is proof that your cruelty was a lie." The square erupted into chaos. Some voices rose with the elder, demanding her exile again, but others faltered. A few women whispered to each other, eyes fixed on her stomach, remembering their own children, remembering the pain of birth and the joy of life. Doubt crept into the crowd. Elias stepped closer, to Sira standing at her side. His hand brushed hers, silent but strong. His voice cut through the noise. "If you destroy her, you destroy hope. If you call her cursed, then you curse yourselves. For here stands the truth, you cannot kill it with your fear." The elder raised his hand, his face twisted with anger. But before he could speak, a young girl stepped forward from the crowd. She carried a small child in her arms. Her voice was soft, trembling. "If she carries life, then she is not cursed, she is blessed. You told us no giant could ever bear children. Yet she has. Does that not mean the old stories were true?" The crowd hushed. Their eyes turned back to Sirah. Her tears fell silently, not of shame but of defiance. For the first time, the village that had laughed now stood divided. Some still snarled with hate, but others looked away in shame. And some, just a few, looked at her with awe. The battle was not over. She knew danger still lingered, but as she stood there, Elias by her side, she felt a power greater than fear. She had returned, not as the outcast of the village, but as a mother-to-be carrying the truth within her. And no council, no elder could take that away. The days after her return to the village were heavy with tension. Some looked at Sira with anger, others with fear. But there were eyes, too, that carried doubt, and even a faint spark of respect. The whispers did not stop, yet they no longer held the same cruel edge. For every time Sira walked through the square with her hand resting on her growing belly, the people were reminded of what they had once called impossible. Elias stayed close to her, working the farm, but also guarding her from wandering eyes. He had no weapons, no army, only his steady strength and his refusal to leave her side. Sira often told him, "You risk everything for me." But Elias always answered the same, "Some things are worth the risk." As the months passed, her body changed. The child within her grew, and with every small kick, every stir of life, her courage grew too. She began to sing softly at night, old songs her mother had once sung before turning away in shame. Now Sira sang them not for herself, but for the child she carried. The village could no longer deny what their own eyes saw. Life bloomed where they had sworn it never could, yet danger lingered. The elder and his followers spoke often of tainted blood. They feared the child because it was part human. They argued it would bring weakness, but others whispered differently. If she bears this child, perhaps it means strength. Perhaps it means change. When the time of birth came, the air was heavy with storm clouds. Rain lashed against Elias's small home. Sira labored through the night, her cries strong but filled with pain. Elias stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering words of courage. "You are stronger than they ever knew. You will bring this child into the world." The hours stretched long, but at last the cries of a newborn filled the house. A small body, warm and alive, was placed into Sira's arms. Her tears flowed freely as she gazed at the child, tiny but strong, its eyes opening to the world for the first time. She pressed her lips to its forehead and whispered, "You are my proof, you are my hope, you are my gift." Elias stood near, his own eyes wet. For a moment, the world outside, the hatred, the whispers, the fear, faded away. In that room there was only life, pure and unshakable. Word of the birth spread quickly. By morning the square was filled again. The people demanded to see. Some came with scorn, others with silent awe. Sira walked into the square, her tall frame wrapped in cloth, her child held close to her chest. Elias followed, his steps steady. The crowd hushed. The elder's voice rose above them, filled with anger. "Show us the child. Show us the abomination you bring among us." Sierra did not tremble. She held her child higher, the small face glowing with new life. The people leaned forward, expecting deformity, expecting shame, but what they saw was only a child, healthy, strong, and beautiful. Its skin carried the soft tone of both human and alien, its eyes brighter than either race alone. Gasps spread through the square, whispers turned to murmurs. "It looks strong. It looks blessed," one woman said. Another whispered. The elder was wrong. The elder tried to shout over them. "It is unclean, it is a threat." But his voice cracked against the rising tide of the people's awe. For every cry of hate, there were 3 voices of doubt. And slowly, the weight of truth crushed the lie. Sierra's voice rose clear, louder than the storm that had passed. "You called me empty, you called me cursed, but here I stand as a mother, and this child, born of human and alien, is proof that your cruelty was wrong. This child is not shame, this child is future." The people fell silent, some bowed their heads, others turned away in guilt, and a few even stepped forward, their eyes filled not with hate but with wonder. In that moment the power of the elder's words broke. His authority cracked like old stone, for the truth in Sierra's arms could not be denied. Elias stepped forward, his voice strong. "Judge her no longer by your fear, but by what you see before you. This child is life, and life cannot be cursed." Sierra's tears fell as she held her child close. She was no longer the outcast of the village, no longer the empty giant mocked and shamed. She was a mother, her strength proven not by what others said but by the life she carried. And beside her stood the human who had given her not only kindness, but the courage to believe in herself. That night, under the stars, Sierra sat with her child cradled against her, Elias nearby. The village still wrestled with change, but deep inside, she knew the future had shifted. Her child was more than proof of her worth. It was a bridge between 2 worlds, a light no hatred could extinguish. And as she whispered to the sleeping child, her voice soft and filled with love, she knew the truth. They had tried to take everything from her, but in the end, she had been given the greatest gift. Of all, the gift of motherhood.